I am now currently working as a social media consultant. I started my own business a couple months ago, but previously I worked for Tom Ferry for about 4 years or so, and I ran all of his social and as well as managing his video team. Some of you I may have seen throughout the ecosystem at either like Elite Retreat, Summit, what have you. But today I kind of want to walk through something that I call the social code. So kind of how to build your social presence from starting of how to create an audit to a social media strategy. And then at the end, I'm going to give kind of just next steps and things that you can kind of get started on right away. So I'll hop into my slides. It's around 20 slides or so I might breeze through them, but I'm going to try to go in depth as I can. So I take as many notes as possible. And then at the end, I'll leave room for questions. So if you do have any questions for me, I can answer things right away from you. So I'll just kind of get started now and I'll share my screen. Perfect. Let's make sure. Okay. So I wanted to walk through first. This is kind of a background, things that I specialize in. So anything from like social media strategies, building brands, all organic growth. I've worked in the past at a marketing agency doing paid stuff. So a lot of like paid ads on Facebook, LinkedIn, what have you. But right now I primarily focus on organic growth. My key strengths are in lead generation. Of course, since I worked with Tom for around 4 years, it was always like driving leads for coaching, driving leads for sales, events, etc. So that's kind of my strong suit, is that organic growth. And then a fun fact about me is I have 3 cats and then 1 dog that Tessa talks about North. Jumping right in. So why is social media so important for your business? I mean, the biggest thing would obviously be brand awareness, nurturing your leads, driving sales and community building. So you can kind of see that even if you feel like you don't have a strong social presence now, it's never too late to start one. I think that the big key players right now is having at least an Instagram and a Facebook to start. If you wanted to kind of transfer into the TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn space, I think that those can become gradual over time. But the main focuses that I kind of would like to focus on is like Instagram and Facebook. The reason being is because the platforms are tied to each other. So of course, like if you needed to run paid ads for a reason, you do it through Facebook. And then it could also help with your Instagram. I think YouTube right now for someone who might be a solo agent is a really big undertaking. I think a lot of times, video content is pushed so often, but having to create like a weekly series is a lot of work. But I feel like if you are able to put things in place of like your strategy, auditing your channels, then you can kind of work towards that. So I want to work into how to audit your social media channels. So I think it's really important to first start looking at, let's see. Okay. Is to first start looking at what's working for you, what's not working for you, who's engaging with your content, which networks does your audience use, and how does your social media presence compare to your competition? It's really good to look into these key indicators because not all of your channels are going to have the same audience. So you may have an audience on Instagram that is, I don't know, anyone from between like 25 to 35, and they're located in like Dallas, New York, and Los Angeles. But then you can hop over to your Facebook and you can have a totally different demographic. Your demographic could be primarily female, or it could be people in their ages of 45 to 65. It's really important to audit your pages so you can kind of see who to speak to for your specific channels, which I think is really helpful because a good example would be for Tom. When I was running his pages, Facebook was predominantly all female based, but his YouTube was predominantly all male based. So that's why on his YouTube, you had like Jason Pantana hosting shows, you had Tom hosting shows. It was like male driven. That I feel like you need to look into your specific channels and audit them to see who your audience is. And that will also depend on the copy for the post, what you're posting on those specific channels. Like your copy shouldn't be the same on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. You should be having different copy and keywords per channel. So when you are auditing your pages, you're able to actually look through to see what you're currently doing and or what's working and what kind of isn't working for you. The main thing once jumping into your audit is asking yourself these 3 questions. So in the last years, we've seen a decline in like that aesthetic driven copy. And content. I don't think that when you go to someone's Instagram page, it really matters what the aesthetic looks like matching to see if it's blue here and black here and making sure it works here. Like people don't care about that stuff. I think early on in Instagram, like 2015 to maybe like 2017, people cared so much about like having that aesthetic. But I think as long as you have a cohesive brand coloring, font, it doesn't really matter. And that lo-fi content kind of rose to the top. So you started to see more of that organic content, the straight to phone, the green screen in the back, that kind of content started performing a lot better than this like polished content. So the main things to look at is, does my brand deliver what I promised on social? Is my content true to the values I claim? And am I serving the needs of my customers and community? So when you are running through this audit, you're going to start, I'll show you an example of kind of how to outline all of the pillars to look through what to look into for an audit. So the audit approach is kind of in 6 steps, I like to say. So the first 3 is create a list of all your social accounts. So anything that's inactive, active, maybe you created something in a past, you no longer use that handle. It doesn't matter. I would look through every account that you've ever opened and are using or aren't using. Then check in on your branding. So your profile, your cover images, your bio text, see what all of those say. You might have a different profile picture for LinkedIn than you have from Facebook because you don't use LinkedIn as often. So you really want to incorporate that in the audit so you can see what needs to change and what needs to maybe go away. Another thing to look into is like the @ name versus the username. So on Instagram, your @ name could be like @Courtney Fosse, like mine, but then your actual like your name, when it's searched, you want it to say like Courtney Fosse / like SoCal Realtor. Like you want to have something additive in that name so that when people are typing your name in the search bar, that's the name that's going to pop up. Even if your username is completely different, your username doesn't have to have Courtney Fosse, realtor of so-and-so. Like it, as long as it's in that name, but look through all of your channels and kind of see where things are cohesive and where things are kind of missing the mark. The next thing would be identifying your top performing content. So what's getting the response you want? Is it a photo, a reel, a story? Kind of what's the highest engagement? Is it those candidate posts? Is it the more polished stuff, things that aren't polished? Are people responding the same across all channels? So maybe you post something on Instagram and also on Facebook and it doesn't do so well on Facebook. Is it the right audience for your Facebook page? A good tip I like to use, especially for Instagram, is you're able to create saved albums on Instagram. So what I like to do is create saved albums based off of highest performing content. So I'll look through my pages every couple of months and I'll save posts that are doing really well and I'll add it into that saved content album. So when I am revisiting or I need ideas for new content, I look back and see all of my highest performing posts, see what people liked about them. Maybe there was something someone was saying in the comments that'll spark an idea for a new post. Or maybe it's something that you posted over a year ago. You don't know why it did so well. Use ChatGPT, manipulate the copy of that and create a brand new post that's that exact same form of content. So for example, if I had a post that did really well about me talking about SEO and backlinks on websites, I would see, okay, this is something that people really liked. Then I would manipulate, maybe it was a carousel post I did last time. Well, maybe this time I'm going to try to do a static post. It's going to be around the same topic about backlinks and SEO, but I'm going to adjust the copy a little bit, maybe change the graphic and see how it performs. And that's a good way of like A/B testing your content. The next thing is to look into your channel performance. So profile visits, follower growth, organic versus paid, how many website visits are coming to your Instagram. So if you have like a link tree, checking where that's coming from, or if you like to use like UTM tracking, just kind of seeing where your performance is. A really good place is having like a KPI tracking sheet that I like to do every month. And I kind of go through the numbers for the month of engagements, likes, comments, all of that kind of stuff so that I can track month over month how the content is performing. Another thing is understanding your audience per channel. Like I said previously, you may have a different audience on a different channel and you have no idea. I've had times where I go in and my LinkedIn is completely different than my Instagram. Like my Instagram right now is a work Instagram and it's predominantly all real estate because I was so involved in Tom Ferry and the ecosystem, and that's kind of where I got my growth. But my LinkedIn is all people that I went to college with. So like my LinkedIn demographic is completely different. So I don't want to put like real estate focused content on my LinkedIn when that's not the audience for it. The last thing would be updating your social strategy. So what channels are driving the most results? Are there any new platforms you should be using? Every person that I've worked with or client that I've worked with, I always build out an intense social strategy just because you want to be able to have like a brand Bible or some sort of book that you could give someone if they needed to run your social for you. And this would kind of dive into all of this stuff, like what your strategy is, how to write the copy for it. Like it's a pretty in-depth thing. But I would think looking, as long as you have a bare minimum of like, what is your strategy? What are your business goals? You can have, it'll work for any of your platforms. So I'll walk into later kind of building out a strategy for yourself. Going into here, this is a social audit template. So I just wanted to show you kind of what it looks like for me. I usually have it on an Excel doc. And I have all of those different 6 steps that I just recently talked about. So handle name, bio, hashtags, link and profile. And I go through each of the channels and see where it's at for there. So I could be, looking at demographics, number of followers year over year, what was the goal for it? So that when you do assess all of your channels, you can see what the clear differences are, or you could see where you may need to be spending more time or less time on your channels. So once you've kind of audited your pages, you want to see like, okay, these are the channels that I'm using. These are the channels I'm not going to use. I'm going to focus heavily on these 3 things. You're going to start to build out your social strategy. So I know that this webinar essentially was like how to crack the code of social, but I don't think there is like a secret sauce or something that's going to make you gain more followers or do this unless you actually have the foundation laid. And that foundation is doing an audit and doing a strategy so that when you are building up, you have something that you were starting from rather than just implementing all these things that you see on a blog article or someone told you, oh, you need to do 20 reels a week and 2 times a day, and that's going to work for the posting. Once you have the foundation of an audit and a strategy, you can say, well, that's great. 2 times posting a day works great for you, but that doesn't work great for my audience. And this is why. These are my objectives. This is what I'm reaching for. These are my goals for the quarter. Like your social journey is going to be completely different than someone else's. So why do you need a strategy? So the main thing is just making sure that you're not posting at random. You have those goals in place. You know what you're going to be talking about. You know what your brand is if you needed to change anything on your channels. It solves your goals. It encourages content to be going out consistently on your channels. And it really identifies as well the business opportunities that you can have through social. So maybe you use Twitter and it's just for you to engage with articles on there. And that's the sole purpose of it. That's fine. As long as you've identified that that is your goal for Twitter. Maybe your goal for Instagram is that's where you want to drive leads. So look in and paying more attention to like what is going to make you drive leads to Instagram. So when you have this strategy, you're able to kind of put everything in place. I like to always start out with SMART goals for your strategy. So what exactly do you want to achieve? And always putting like a tangible number behind it. For example, I want to increase the number of followers I have on Instagram by 15%. So what does that 15% look like? Measurable. How will you know when you've achieved it? What KPIs are you tracking? There was an increase in 15% on my followers by the end of 2023. How are you tracking that? Attainable. It can be tempting to aim high, but don't be too unrealistic with goals. So is increasing your followers by 15% actually something that you're able to do? Maybe it's by 5%, and that's only 20 or 30 followers for the year. That's fine. As long as you're not putting these like extra mental goals of like, I want to be at like 10,000 by the end of the year. Like look into all these metrics and see if it's something doable that you can have. Relevant. Does it fit your bigger goal? So Later on, I'll walk into using your business goals and your social goals and what to track with those. So does it fall into your business goals and social goals? Like, does it go hand in hand? And then time bound is your goal doesn't have a due date. I'd always set like a completion time, end of quarter, end of year. Like, when do you want to get this traction on your channels and by when? Once you go into there, consider using analytics in real time. So what is your audience's pain points, competitor messaging and content, sentiment, the most popular types of content? I pulled this graphic from Sprout Social, and it kind of talks about the types of contents consumers are seeing from brands they follow. So you can see that people like the highlighting of products. They like to see what you're doing, but people also really like not so polished content, that those testimonials, you straight to the camera. Like, again, I think you see all these other people with like videographers and you think like, I don't have a videographer, like I can't do that. Truly, if you just have your phone, you will be fine. Get a ring light. When I did Tom's social, all of his polished videos never did as well as his organic videos. Like, all of those videos did so much better when it was like Tom behind a green screen talking about like interest rates, or Tom talking about like a book he recently read and this was the message for it. Like, people really want to connect with you as a person, not as just like your full brand. And I think that that's why it did so well for Tom, is that Tom had kind of that mix of personal and business, but it was mainly really personal. So you could see who he was as a person. You saw pictures of him and Kathy, his wife. Like, people really care about like the sentiment that you're putting behind those more organic postings. So this walks into like the business objective, your social media goal, and then like the metrics you would be tracking for it. So for example, if your business objective is to grow your brand, that social media goal is going to be awareness. So you're going to be checking the metrics for followers, shares, etc. That's going to show the timeline of if you're actually achieving these goals. If it's to turn customers into advocates so that they're, advocating for your brand, engagement is what you're looking for. You're looking for those comments, likes, mentions, those kind of metrics. If it is to drive leads and sales, you're looking for conversions. So like website clicks, email signups, lead generation forms, you're looking to where you're capturing people's information. And if it's to improve customer retention, or sometimes I like to put this one as like build and maintain trust, the goal is going to be the consumer. So testimonials, social media sentiment, all of those types of content. So once you figure out what your business objectives are, then you can kind of match what social goal is going to show if you actually are achieving that goal or not. From there, I like to break it into how that content is being created per week. So I put on here on the bottom left, like, for example, if my pillar for my content was mindset, my topic is going to be a motivational lesson, and that template is going to be a video. Tuesday, my pillar is going to be my educational pillar. Then my topic is going to be industry updates, and it's going to be a carousel. So I like to organize the content by week so that I'm making sure that I'm hitting all of those pain points of my audience. So like, once you've created what your goals are, what your pillars are, you can then break up your weeks, and it's so much easier to batch content because you can say, I need 3 posts that are going to be about education this week. This is what I'm going to do. One about industry updates. I'm going to do one about what's happening in my local marketplace. Like, then you can actually build a content calendar. You can use Sprout Social, Gain app, Hootsuite, whatever you want to schedule out content. If you don't want to pay for those, you can always use each channel's personal feature. So you can schedule out tweets, you can schedule out LinkedIn posts, you can schedule out YouTube, all within the platform. So you don't really need to pay for these like management tools anymore for scheduling out content. You can do it right there in the platform. And then when creating the content mix, I like to do like an 80-20 rule. So like 50% of my content's going to be to drive back, traffic to the website. 25 is going to be for this, breaking it really into what type of content is being posted when and how much of it is being posted. So once I've walked through now the audit and the strategy, I wanted to give you guys like actionable next steps to do. So the biggest thing is being the resource for your channel and your community in general. Like imagine your your accounts are your first touch point with a customer. You don't want to be screaming like buy now, just listed, just sold. You need to add some personality in there before you start like, automatically telling people what to do. So that means like creating actionable educational content. Have you guys heard lately? I was walking around my neighborhood and I noticed this. What are your guys' thoughts on on an HOA in a property like this? Like you need to start creating that relatable content for people and be kind of that resource. So if people go to your page, they know like, oh, my kids and I want to go to a community event. I know that Tessa always posts about community events. Like I'm going to go to her page. I'm sure she posted the latest thing on there. Like you want to be that resource on your channels. The next thing is going to be posting regularly. So I know consistency is key. You hear it all the time, but it is true. I've always seen whenever I post maybe once, twice a week, my engagement and all of my stuff on Instagram, I mean, my numbers are gray. The percentage is completely down. Like the platform, whatever you give to the platform, it's going to take back from you. So if you're not giving anything to it, it's not going to reward your content at all. The sweet spot right now is like 1 to 2 posts a day. I think that as long as you're posting daily and you have kind of like a schedule to follow, your content is going to slowly but surely start to grow. I've seen that I have a dog account that I run for my dog just for fun. And I've been able to grow it to 20,000 followers. And that's only because I spend daily on there growing it. Whereas my personal account, I only have like 6,000 followers, but I'm posting maybe twice a week. Like it's not getting the engagement or anything that my other pages are getting. The other thing is taking videos seriously. I've spoken to a few people and they're like, I need to lose 25 pounds before I get onto camera, or I need to do this. Like there's kind of no excuse anymore. People want to see your video content. They don't really care what you look like as long as you're giving them something that's entertaining to watch and learn about. Your original video can feature customers raving about stuff. So here I talked about like the beautiful thing about video is that you could have a 20-minute video where you're talking about something and you can splice it into multiple pieces of content so you can get the most out of that 20 minutes of content. I put on the right-hand side, these are like video ideas. So video listicles, people love that. Like 10 tips of how to do this, 3 tips of how to do this. Did you know in 3 steps you could do this? People love that like list type of content, spotlighting your employees, user-generated content, educational or how-tos, or like people love like, did you know this? Or did you know in your city that this building was built in this time frame? Like people love learning about different things in their community. Breakdown of larger content, relatable content, and then asking a question. So like, hey, I have a question. Like, have you guys ever had to deal with a situation like this? Like, let me know, like DM me. That's like always posing a question. People love to provide help where they can. So if you're reaching out to your audience, I'm sure that you'll get a response from it. The last thing is infusing your content with your personality. So like I said, ditch the robotic stuff. Like it doesn't really need to be fully polished. Like be yourself, show your personality. People want to work with people that they relate to. If I go to your page, I want to be able to see like, wow, they're into the Lakers. I'm also into the Lakers. Oh, they recently went to a game. Oh, if I have tickets, maybe I'll invite, like you need to create that content to where people feel relatable and that they can trust you. The last thing is experimenting with emerging tech. So obviously, you know that like ChatGPT, all of that stuff is now like so huge that you can use that to integrate into your workflow. So nearly 9 to 10 business leaders expect their companies to increase investments in AI technology. This is one that I love from Sprout. They have an automated technology to where they will reply and do, it's kind of like ManyBot, whatever, those chats that respond back to people, and it'll actually like analyze the wording and respond back without you actually having to put together like a flow chart of like what to say, which I really like. But you can also, there's integrations in Instagram that you can have automatic replies on your Instagram DM. So if you're not there, you don't respond to their message, it'll automatically say, hey, I'm not online right now. I'll get back to your message as soon as possible. This is like a good way to start like filtering through your DMs. But that's pretty much everything. I know I walked through like an extensive process. I can send my deck to Tessa so you guys can look through it, copy it, see it if you need it for anything else. And then if you want to connect with me, these are my socials. You can always email me if you have questions. If you don't know what you should be doing, where you should be starting, you can always email me and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And then right now, I know we have like 2 minutes left. If people want to stay, I don't know, for like 3 minutes longer, but if you have any questions, then I will stay online to answer your questions. So
We did have a question from Rochelle. She was asking carousel. What is a carousel for Instagram?
yeah. So a carousel post would be any post that you're using that has more than one image. So it could be like, you could use 3 images to swipe through. You can use 4 images, 5, you can use up to 10. You can incorporate videos in there, but that would be a carousel post.
Okay, cool. Can anybody else have any questions for Courtney?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Hi, Courtney, Sandy.
Hi.
Hi. So I've started opening up myself more and more on Instagram, where I opened up my Instagram because it was private. I have a higher following on my LinkedIn, and I see that I get a lot of, as they call impressions, like a lot of people looking at my material. However, I have more engagement on Instagram. So I don't, I'm kind of falling in the sense of like trying to go more so here with IG instead of LinkedIn, because I feel like LinkedIn is not giving me what I need, but I've built up, like close to 700, contacts from my previous, past life, I should say, in corporate. So I'm just trying to see what I can do differently, because since I have a large group in LinkedIn of professionals that I know that I could, get business from.
Yeah, I think for LinkedIn, looking at the metrics, an impression is like when someone has viewed the content. So an impression is always going to be a lot higher than like your comments, your likes, etc., because it's when someone has scrolled through your content and it's a touch point. So on your LinkedIn, if you think about it, people are like on a feed all day long. So when people are scrolling through, that's going to be marked as an impression. So that's why, because you have so many followers on your LinkedIn, that's why you may be having a big impression compared to your Instagram account where you have more engagement. But I would really look into what people are impressed by on your LinkedIn page and creating more content that is like conversational. I think that people on LinkedIn like to see articles, blogs, did you know type posts, and you could then alter that to be an Instagram post as well. So like if it was like a did you know in your area, it could be a blog article or 3 or 4 paragraphs on your LinkedIn, but on your Instagram, you can pull all that content from LinkedIn, go to ChatGPT and say, rewrite this into an Instagram post, and it'll rewrite it into an Instagram post for you. And then you can use that content there as well.
Okay. All right. Thank
Courtney,
you.
I have one last question, and Tyre, if you want to, I don't know, I think he's on the call too. Him and I were wondering about hashtags, and I know we're always trying to get more visibility and people to our page. So how would you recommend, and how like to use a hashtag and where to find them?
Yeah, I think for hashtags, it depends on the channel. So on Facebook, I would not use hashtags on Facebook, because when you go on Facebook, you're not typing in the search bar a hashtag to see where to eat or a location. You would actually be typing in that location. So I don't use hashtags on Facebook. I predominantly would use them on YouTube in the description, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Right now, the algorithm is saying that the sweet spot is like between 3 to 5 hashtags. But to be honest, I've seen things differ for each pages. Like I've used on a client's page the 3 to 5, but then like on my personal dog account, I use like up to 15, and I'm getting the same type of visibility that I am on 3 to 5. I think I have this like love-hate relationship with the algorithms, that I feel like they're always constantly trying to change things, and people are trying to change their strategies right away. But I wouldn't load it up with like 30 hashtags to where it tells you like you've exceeded the limit. I would stay within like a 10 range of hashtags, and I would have them relevant to like what the content is. I always love to use a hashtag with your name, because if someone ever needed to look up your name and they used it on a hashtag, all of your content is going to pop up under that hashtag. So every post I post, I always put my name, like at Courtney Fosse. And so then if anyone ever needed to like look at everything, they could see it. And then I'd use ones that are like more relevant to your actual what's happening in there. So like if it could be like a just listed, I would put like just listed in SoCal, like something that's going to be more of a niche hashtag rather than just like Laguna Beach. And then it's like when people go to visit Laguna Beach, they're just going to see vacation photos and things that aren't going to pop up for yours. So I would use very specific ones to like what the actual image or the content is.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I know. I
Thank
love
you.
the,
Courtney,
yeah, go.
sorry, I had another question. So it's always been a struggle between like growing your following organically, or do you pay for like advertising your posts, boosting your posts, doing all that so all your followers could see it, or what do you recommend in that aspect?
I think it depends on what your main goal for the page is. For example, with Tom, all of his Instagram posts were all organic. But if there was like a podcast or something that he had like a certain guest on that we really needed more eyes on, I would boost that post. We'd have like a boosted spend budget for the month. And I'd put like a couple $100 behind that post, because Instagram and Facebook and all of them, they always say like, if you boosted this post for $5.99, you'll get like 600 more views. Like they always try to entice you to like pay more. But I would, if you wanted to boost your content, I would boost like specific things that you really wanted more eyes on, like podcasts, blog articles. I wouldn't boost like all of your just listed or just sold or what have you. Like maybe it was a testimonial talking about like a client and how great you were to work with. That's something I would put dollars behind. I wouldn't put dollars behind like every single post that just is going to just clog people's feed. So I think you need to decide like what is worth it for boosting if you wanted to start adding dollars behind it, and what's kind of that, I think I just need to, post consistently or a little bit more on this type of content, and I'm not going to boost. I'm just going to use an organic strategy for that. So I think it just is a toss up between like what your priority is for the channel.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Any other questions? Okay, perfect. Well, if you guys have any other questions, you can email me, Courtney at lafossemedia.com. You can find me on Instagram and DM me. I'm more than happy to answer anything you guys have. The positive about like not working under Tom Ferry anymore is that I can help you guys now. It's not a conflict of interest anymore. So if you need help with anything, seriously, message me. I'll send you articles, whatever else you need, as much as I can help you. It's nice that I can be a resource for you guys. So again, if you just want to reach out, anything, even if it's like, what do you think I should be doing on this page? Like anything, you can reach out to me and I'm more than willing to answer any questions you have.